Hey everybody, Coach Keith Keppner here. We're going to talk about how you can get the upper hand with overhand punches. By the way, make sure you stick around towards the end. We're going to talk about the advantages of overhand hand punches, the big advantages that they're going to give you, but also how to specifically throw them. And we're talking about all the nuance and all the detail. And that's why you're here, and that's why people watch this channel, is to not just hear surface level boilerplate boxing advice, but to take a deep dive. So I know that's you. Let's keep going with it. Make sure you like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Make sure you are. And consider joining level 2. I'm only taking on a few more people where I will analyze your sparring videos, fight videos, training videos, and give you feedback in this format just like this. All right. Also consider buying me a cup of coffee if you enjoy this. And how you can do that is by going to the bottom of this video where it says thanks right there. Click it. And I've had people drop me $5, $10, $20. Really helps the channel, keeps me caffeinated, keeps me going. All right. Now, let's talk about punch categories before we dive deep into overhand punches. So you have your basic straight punches, of course, right? We all know that. You have your hooks, you have your uppercuts, you have your 45-degree punches, which is essentially the opposite of an overhand. And then you have the overhand punches. Now, the overhand is overused by beginners. And it's something that any type of street fighter or anything else like that, you'll see them loop punches really badly. Now, why is it overused? Because it is a natural way to create power, to swing your arm in a big fashion like you're hitting someone with a purse. That's like actually one of my dad's former heavyweight pro fighters. He had a code word for the overhand punch that he would tell people that he trained, and that was grandma, which is like you're hitting somebody with, like your grandma hitting someone with their purse. But to swing it over like that, and it's a natural way for someone to produce force, and it's very hard to learn how to produce force with a straight punch, in my opinion, as well as a hook that is more in the box, right? Not super wide and loopy, all right? So because of this, it's the easiest way to make power, but it doesn't mean there's not nuance to it, when to do it, how to do it, why you're doing it. Because also, too, sometimes if you don't know why you're doing something, you might not have a good reason why you're doing it, and it could be optimized by doing something else, all right? Now, it is up to us boxing coaches, though, to help boxers learn to throw straight punches, right? Coaches have to help boxers learn to throw straight. It's something that's not natural, right? And it's natural for us. You know, humans aren't made to punch naturally. Punching doesn't make sense naturally. That's why so many people will slap their punches, paw with their punches, and everything else. It is not natural to connect with the fist, and the bone, the hand isn't made for it to do that. But you're made to slap, you're made to grab, you're made to push, you're made to pull, things like that. All right. Now, overhand punches. What trajectory do they take? What pathway do they follow? Well, typically they go from a 2 o'clock to 8 o'clock trajectory, right? So of course, like a straight is right down the middle, but a hook is going to go from 3 to 9 or 9 to 3 across. That overhand is going to follow that path, coming over a shoulder, over a guard. And think about when Marcos Maidana fought Mayweather, it might do more of a 1 o'clock to 7 o'clock type trajectory. So it's going higher to come up over when someone's leaning out and things like that. Now, where this is also beneficial is that if you're fighting an opposite stance person. So if you're orthodox, then it's along this trajectory. If you're maybe fighting a southpaw, let's say, and you want to get your left coming over the top, then it would be a 10 o'clock to 4 o'clock trajectory, right, with your lead arm or your left arm, if you're looking at this clock. Or it would be to get really high up and over a shoulder of an opposite stance fighter, or even just the hand up. You're going to go for that 11 o'clock to 5 o'clock trajectory. All right, so those are the different pathways that an overhand is going to take. Now, with our punches, like we talked about, the different types of punches, the 6 to 12, that's an uppercut, right? That's a basic pathway. A pathway that you're going to almost never see, right? 99% of the time, you're not going to see a 12 to 6 punch. Now, there are some times when I know I've seen it. I haven't personally hit anyone with a 12 to 6 punch, but I know I've seen it. I was going through, I was trying to find a video example of this, and the closest I could find was Marciano, but there's been a few more modern versions of this as well. Not at a super, super high level, but the 12 to 6 is not really there, because also remember as well, you have to try to hit a scoring area that isn't like the back of a head, and also hit with the knuckles, right? But other than that, I mean, it's another pathway to go, but it's just there's not going to be a lot of use for it. Definitely more of the 1 o'clock to 6 or the 11 o'clock to 5 o'clock trajectory is going to be much more used for you if you want to go up high and wide like that. Now, what are the overhand advantages, right? Why are we going to work on throwing this punch that everyone does naturally when they're sloppy, and we have to untrain this, right? And that's one thing is that when I started coaching, I didn't talk about overhand punches because, again, it was so often something that you had to get someone to get rid of, right? But let's talk about the advantages first. All right, gets you over the castle walls, right? Right? You're trying to shoot straight, and if you're shooting straight, you're not going to get over, right? So think about if you launch like a cannonball or some type of something that you're shooting out, it's going to go over, arc over, and that's going to be a benefit for you to get over a guard. Now, in certain head positions, it's much more advantageous to throw an overhand style shot. If you try to shoot a straight shot for someone that's kind of leaning off to the side, you might not catch them as cleanly as you like, versus if you overhand it and arc it, then they're in a tough spot and they have nowhere to really go. They could slightly pull back, but they can't come back up from a leaned over position. And it's a very advantageous move to use against same stance or opposite stance fighters, right? If someone's in opposite stance of you, a lot of times people will lean off hard because you feel like you don't have any shot, right? Let's say I'm orthodox against a southpaw. They lean over on their left side. It's my right side. I don't really feel like I have a right uppercut and things like that, but getting that left hand coming over the top and arcing from that 11 o'clock to 5 o'clock is going to be very, very beneficial. Now, it's hard to track because it's taking a non-traditional path, and that's where you see people like, just so many guys, but let's just use like Canelo as an example, where he'll loop his hook down and come up. That's hard to track. You think something is going to go down and hit you downstairs, but it's actually building up momentum to come up, and that's why it can work. Now, if that's all you do, then it's beatable. But if you mix it in with variety, then it's a challenge, right? I know that when I've sparred like a lot of MMA guys that loop and overhand their punches a lot, it's hard to read versus just those kind of standard straight shots that are more compact and in the pocket, because you know what they look like. But with the different ways that people will loop their punches, sometimes it will really throw you off. Now, there are answers for that that maybe I'll go into in this video or in another video, but I know I've gone into it with other videos. It increases your power because you're building momentum, right? And now that's something as well, is that goes back to reasons why people overhand, because people typically arm punch, right? And your arm has weight to it, right? Not as much weight as a leg, but it has weight. And so if you build up momentum with that arm by swinging it around, right, looping it, then that helps generate force with the arm, versus if you shoot it straight, then if you're arm punching, you're attempting to extend your tricep, and your arm, contract your tricep, extend your arm, and that's it. And so it's very hard to produce power. You have to learn how to throw with the body to extend that arm. And the arm movement is completely secondary. But with an overhand style shot, typically done by a Street Fighter type person, it is a lot of arm, but there's power with it because of the nature of it, but also because that arm has a chance to build momentum. You have this force.
I saw someone do this. Was this a TikTok? We were watching something where someone's like, we don't actually need gravity. We were watching this with me. Like, we actually don't need it.
What do you mean that we don't need gravity?
What if it was never invented?
Right? That flat earthers will debate us on, but there's some type of thing called gravity, right? And at least it's replicatable enough that when we're on this planet, things, if we let go of them, they fall down, right? And if you drop something and it hits the ground, once it builds up some momentum, it's going to hit that ground harder than if you just set it there. So the same thing with that overhand style punch. That's also what generates the force with it and can make it possibly your most powerful punch. Or with a lot of people, it is essentially becomes the most powerful punch. Now there's disadvantages to it and reasons why you don't want to throw it, but it has that potential to be crazy powerful because you're not only building up momentum with your body when you throw correctly, with your arm, if you're new, but also you can implement this as well with good punching. And then you use some gravity to dig that punch down. Use a little bit of gravity as your friend to bury them. It's very powerful, very powerful. All right, now let's talk about the downsides though, because remember, everything in life is trade-offs. Everything in boxing is trade-offs. That's something that people don't get enough, I think, with life and with boxing. I've heard it so much throughout the years where someone's talking about some move, and I used to be guilty of this too, definitely, where I'd be like, oh, don't do this, you're going to get killed. That's a bad move, or this, that, and the other thing. And like, yes, there can definitely be things which most of us can agree upon, or things you don't want to do like the vast majority of the time. Like, there's probably little to no upside of doing it, but it's all trade-offs, right? If you do something, there's going to be benefits to it, and no matter how brilliant it is, there's going to be downside, right? Your coach tells you to jab, you jab, they counter your jab. That's a trade-off. A jab can be, you can tell a jab's coming, and so it can be an easy counter. We all, as boxers, should be working on how to counter jabs. Make sure you watch my video where I talk about drills and everything else, and all the basic drills basically are based off of dealing with someone's jab, because if we can take someone's jab away, we're going to be good. And so remember, everything has trade-offs with boxing. There is no one-size-fits-all answer. Now, downside of the overhand. Why, as coaches, we have to untrain it from people is because obviously it ends up sometimes being all someone will do, right? But it takes more time. And that's the biggest problem, is that if all you do is overhand style punches, while you're building up all that momentum and looping and arcing it, it's costing you way more time than a straight punch would, or even a hook that's thrown properly. All right? So, you're trading a little bit of obviously power and things like that, possibly, but you can generate close to the same amount of force with a properly thrown punch while not costing as much time. All right? And that extra time against a good boxer, they're going to clip you inside of any type of shot like that if that's all you do, and it shuts you down and it literally hits you before you hit them. And I've seen that play out time and time and again for people just overhand punching all the time against a good, sharp boxer. Now, it leaves many openings, right? That's the second one, right? As you're throwing it, you're wide open, and as you're missing it, you're open, right? So, of course, there's always an opening, like we talked about earlier, trade-offs, right? There's always an opening with every single punch you throw. I'm sorry, there's not one thing you can do that does not have an opening that's created in boxing. That's what makes boxing interesting. But with an overhand style punch, you are definitely leaning on the pathway of maximizing your openings, theoretically, as you throw it, and also, of course, when you miss it. Because that arm, when it's coming from 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock going downwards, that hand is down now. And, that could be trouble. Now, when do you throw it? Right? That's the question. So I talked about the upside, talked about the downside, and it's something that you have to untrain from people. So is it something that you should never throw? No, there's times and places to throw it. So let's talk about those times and places. Again, someone, like I mentioned earlier, that's leaning on a side. That's one of the most opportune times to do it, where I've seen it have massive effect. And as we talk about techniques in a little bit on how to throw it, you'll realize, and when you practice a little bit, working on it, using some of these techniques I'm going to talk about later, you'll feel how, like, whoa, you can really hammer somebody with this shot. Someone standing tall. Okay, that's something that I didn't work on enough when I boxed. Was a lot of these when to throw it, right? I kind of got untrained from it, and I would rely on hooks as my big power shots versus mixing in some overhands. But when someone stands tall, raises up, throwing that overhand to come over the guard, and it's a punch you can truly throw on someone that's taller than you and generate a lot of force. And it's hard to see. It's very hard to see, right? And also mentally, intuitively, when it's thrown at you, just the way it looks, it has a lot of force. All right. And then you need to find a way around defense, right? Someone's ear muffin, and of course, like classic modern example is someone like Gennady Golovkin, right? He's good at that. Someone's like this, and he'll arc it over the castle walls to get a shot in. And so instead of now, of course, remember with all this fancy talk here, right? Well, I feel funny saying fancy talk when we're talking about overhands, but with all of this theoretical and nuanced talk, let's also talk about the basics in a sense. Okay, I wasn't taught how to pull someone's guard, with one hand and hit him with the other hand. I wasn't taught how to arc over guards and things like that with different style shots, like we're going to talk about, like we are talking about in this video, and I'm going to demonstrate. But what I was taught was to bash someone's face and their hands into their own face, right? Bash their gloves into their face. That's what I was taught, and that's a great answer. You want to see a great example of this? Watch Sugar Ray Leonard, who you don't think of as a brawler, bashing Floyd Mayweather Sr.'s hand into his head, and it's an effective tool. It will rattle a brain a little bit, and if the brain's rattled, it will continue rattling it, causing damage, and cause a lot of trouble for somebody. All right, so don't neglect that because there's a lot of this fanciful talk of if I can do all this high tech stuff, but man, sometimes the low tech maneuver is the answer, right? Instead of trying to, we call it uncover, right? Uncovering someone's guard to hit them, or arcing over and finding sneaky ways to do things. Man, sometimes just bashing someone's hands into the face is the best answer, right? All right. Then it's a timing change, right? So we want to keep someone guessing on what we're doing, right? We're doing our punches, our hooks, our straights, etc., and we want to just change up the time a little bit. This is a great thing to do, and again, that's where I jump back to using Canelo's example. He's very good at that with his left hook and his right as well, his overhand right, where he, because of the loop, it changes the timing, changes the look of the punch, which throws people off. Now, how do you throw this punch? Okay, let's talk about it. All right, so first off is the arc. So purely just getting the arm up, not loading it back, but just getting it up and over, right? That's an overhand. It can look almost like a straight, but instead of what we're going to talk about next, instead of doing that, just arcing it over. And then using the techniques that we're going to talk about a little bit later. Now you have the loop. That is, the easiest way to change timing on it, to produce force. It has the potential for maybe producing the most power, but that loop, so it's almost like a bolo style punch, except not up and under, and it's around and over. And that's how you see it thrown a lot of times. And it, again, produces so much freaking momentum, and the timing is weird on it. So if you don't take a shot right inside of that loop to shut up the loop, and you hesitate on it because the loop wasn't expected, then that hesitation on your part, you get nailed with it, right? Or you use that against your opponent. Now, also, this is where we go to the big thing, all right? Sitting them down. Okay, so, for instance, I had, a couple guys fight yesterday, and, we got a W. We got a decision that I didn't think was the way it should go. But at the end of the day, if we're sitting people down, if we're knocking them down, and if we do that as an amateur 3 times in one round, 4 times in a fight, the fight's over. So, and as a pro, there's a limit as well, depending what state you're in. But again, if you knock someone the hell out, right, or TKO them, no judge can take it from you. or disagree with you because it's done. All right. So sitting them down, this adds a lot of power. Someone that's kind of leaning over to one side, you want to produce maximum force and really hurt them badly, sit them down. So what I mean by this, you literally bend the knees down a little bit as you throw the punch. So as it connects, you are also dropping your body weight. So not only did you build up momentum by the rotation, by the arm swing perhaps of a loop, but then you also are using your body to drop as you throw it. That just drags it down and creates more momentum, more power. All right. Force times velocity. Work on this move. Practice this on a bag. You can practice it on the mitts and have someone hold the mitt that kind of faces up a little bit. And it is just a mule kick power of a shot. Now, last thing, make sure you line up the knuckles. You can still produce force. It's, as if you're an amateur boxer, if you hit with the fingers, that's technically illegal. And also in pro boxing, you're not supposed to hit with the palm and things like that. It's supposed to be a closed fist with the knuckles. So make sure you line up the knuckles. It might require a slight bend of the wrist. All right. I know that's like almost like sacrosanct in boxing world sometimes. But hey, when you throw a long hook, look at some of the best hookers, not on the street, but in the sport of boxing. Look at some of the best hookers in boxing. The wrist is slightly bent so that they can get a knuckle connection on an extended hook. Same with an uppercut, and same sometimes with that overhand style shot. Now, if you bend it beyond the point, it's going to be horrible wrist time. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is so we can line up the knuckles on this punch. All right? Because fingers are going to be something, knuckles are going to be a lot more. Now, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you click like, make sure you click subscribe. Consider joining Level 2, becoming a channel member. We'll give you a review and analysis of your training, fight video, and everything else. Like I said, I'm only accepting a few more people because I want to make sure that I give value and also leave time for me to do everything else that I need to do. And also, if you enjoy this, give me a tip by buying me a cup of coffee. Really appreciate the coffee. Keeps me going, right? I need it to think. I need to speak. I actually have that gene where you process caffeine really well. And so it's my only vice, but it's not a bad one. And you can do that by clicking that thanks button and dropping me $5-10. All right, guys. And also, if you enjoy this video, make sure you click out one of these because it's just exactly what you need.